Welcome to A Hill with a View. My name is Moshe Hill. This is the Sunday show reaction episode. We do this every Sunday night. We talk about what has been going around on the Sunday morning shows, where all the big names in politics get on those shows to talk about whatever they think is important. And we're going to focus today on one particular subject, which is the 2024 race. We are already in that electoral cycle. The moment Donald Trump declared his candidacy for president, we already entered the 2024 cycle. So that's what we're going to talk about. Other things that they talked about on the Sunday shows was the end of Title 42. That's a big deal. We'll get into that probably during the week. Then there's the January 6th committee is going to do blah, blah, blah with yada, yada, yada. That doesn't matter at all because the January 6th committee did what it needed to do. It got Democrats a lot of victories around the country. That's all the January 6th committee was meant to do, and that's what it did. Whatever referrals they have to the DOJ is completely irrelevant. But right now we're going to talk about what the candidates for 2024 are talking about and what a lot of the Republicans are talking about regarding Trump. So we're going to start here with Senator Pat Toomey, who is being interviewed this week.
In your closing address on the Senate floor, you had this message for your party.
For my Republican colleagues, let me just say our party can't be about or beholden to any one man. We're much bigger than that. Our party is much bigger than that.
It's not hard to figure out what one man you're talking about there. Do you think Republicans are increasingly receptive to that message? Do you think Donald Trump's hold on your party is finally slipping?
Absolutely, I do. First, I think his influence was waning, not as quickly as I had hoped it would, but I think it was waning. But the election outcome from last month, I think, dramatically accelerates the waning. And frankly, his unbelievably terrible rollout of his his election campaign, is also not helping him. So, yeah, I mean, I think you see it manifested in a number of ways. One obvious way was quite an impressive turnout of prominent Republicans who have been going to events like the RJC meeting in Las Vegas, openly talking about themselves as candidates after Donald Trump had already made it clear he was running. So that tells you that they perceive the Republican electorate to be much more open. And in my travels since the election around Pennsylvania, I've heard from many, many formerly very pro-Trump voters that they think it's time for our party to move on. So, yes.
So, just a little bit about that. First of all, Pat Toomey did vote to convict Trump during the second impeachment. So, I really don't think that he is impartial or has changed his mind on Trump in the last 2 years. I think he actually has disliked Trump for a very long time. I also think that Pat Toomey, he is his state is the only state that the seat flipped. That's where John Fetterman won. He was in Pennsylvania. Pat Toomey left. Open seat. We had a very bad candidate in Mehmet Oz. But Pat Toomey is part of his job as a Republican, as the outgoing Republican, to get another Republican in to replace him. And he didn't do very well with that either. It's because he voted to convict Trump that when Trump endorsed Mehmet Oz, which I thought was a mistake, in that race, they went with Mehmet Oz because they were going against Pat Toomey, who wasn't really doing what he needed to do to make sure that seat stays in Republican hands. Now, Pat Toomey also was never really a great conservative Republican. I think he always underestimated the need for Trump at the time. I think that the American people and the country as a whole needed a figure like Trump, someone who could attack the media, someone who could take on the establishment. He had many flaws as president. He had many flaws post-presidency, but he was able to accomplish things that I didn't think would ever be able to be accomplished. And I think that the Republican Party needs to move on from Trump. And I think that's where he is correct, Pat Toomey. That a lot of people are seeing the enthusiasm for Trump waning. I think that Ron DeSantis is picking up in a lot of polls because they see DeSantis as a post-Trumpian figure, someone who has the discipline to run, who also understands that the enemy of the Republican Party is not the Democrats, it's the media. The media is going to come after them, and you have to have somebody who can hit back as hard as the media, someone who will not lie down in the face of the media, in the face of the Democrats, in the face of the establishment, and someone who is very effective at getting a message out. That's why I think Ron DeSantis is a good guy. I just don't see Pat Toomey as understanding what the Republican Party needs. I don't think that he's talking to real hardcore Trump supporters, because real hardcore Trump supporters would never talk to a guy like Pat Toomey, who voted to convict President Trump in the second impeachment trial. So I think that it is... he's not really a great messenger for this particular message, to be honest. So then there's this next guy who I think is a terrible messenger for anything regarding the Republican Party. It is outgoing Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, who is probably one of the worst Republican governors in the country, because as opposed to the Republican governors of places like Massachusetts and Maryland, they're at least in blue states. They're Republican governors of blue states. Asa Hutchinson is a Republican governor of a deep red state. He could have gotten away with doing a lot of stuff for his state, and he didn't. But let's listen to what he has to say about Trump.
Tell me this, what is your timeline, and what would make you decide not to run for president?
Well, the timeline would be I finished January 10th after 2 terms as governor of Arkansas. I can focus at that point more on the future. The fact that President Trump has already announced accelerates everyone's time frame. And so the first quarter of next year, you either need to be in or out. And of course, an important factor is not what President Trump is doing necessarily, but what's the level of support out there. And that's important to know. And so we've got some work to do, but I expect a decision to be made the first part of next year.
Okay, something you should know about Asa Hutchinson. He is 72 years old. We already have one septuagenarian in the race. That his name is President Donald Trump. The Democrats have somebody who is pushing 80 going on their side. That is President Joe Biden. We do not need another 72-year-old to be running for president. Asa Hutchinson should not be anywhere near a candidate stage coming in 2023, 2024. That being said, let's say he was 62 years old. Let's say he was 10 years younger, still able to stay with it. Asa Hutchinson is the governor that vetoed a bill that would ban transgender mutilation surgery on children in Arkansas. Arkansas was the first state to take that problem head on, and Asa Hutchinson bowed to the leftist media that thinks it's okay to mutilate children and thinks it's okay to give double mastectomies to young girls, 14, 15 years old. It's okay to castrate young boys, 15, 14 years old. It's okay to chemically castrate them in order to give them puberty blockers that will harm them for the rest of their lives. If that's okay, and that's what the media says, Asa Hutchinson believed them and vetoed the bill, even though the bill was done by a supermajority of Republicans in the Arkansas State Senate, in the Arkansas State Legislature, which means that they overrode the veto. He could have signed it with no political ramifications, because he could, even if someone said, how could you sign that? He could say, well, they have a supermajority. They could have overridden my veto anyway. But it's so political malpractice to bow before the leftist crazies, the transgender ideologues in the media and on the Democratic side. And the fact that he didn't stand up for that key issue early on means that he's not fit to be president of the United States. He doesn't understand what the issues are on the Republican side, what we're fighting for. We're fighting for the culture. We're fighting for the country. If we cannot have candidates that, A, are there just to stop Trump, like John Bolton said he's going to be, like Liz Cheney said she may do, like Asa Hutchinson may do. We can't have candidates that do that. We also can't have candidates that run on marginal tax rates anymore. That is not the Republican Party of 2022. That's not the Republican Party of 2016 either. We need a party that actually focuses on the real issues of Americans. We need a party that focuses on economic issues. We need a party that focuses on foreign policy. We need a party that focuses on these cultural battles. Because right now we have half a country that hates our country. So we can't have Republicans who say, well, the corporate tax rate is 23% and I'm going to knock it down to 19%. That's not the kind of Republicans we are anymore. That's not what we should be. So Asa Hutchinson is not the right guy for the job. Then there's this part where he's already starting to go after other Republicans. So take a look at this one.
My message is the vaccines protect you. Get vaccinated.
Like anything, I mean, you take an mRNA shot, and the way to view it is, okay, what are the benefits and what are the drawbacks? And it seems like our medical establishment never wanted to be honest with people about the potential drawbacks.
Florida governor is leaning into vaccine skepticism at a time when I know health officials are trying to get people to take these boosters.
Okay, I have to pause it right there. Chuck Todd is such a piece of garbage. Leaning into vaccine skepticism. Vaccine skepticism exists because all the promises of the vaccine were lies, turned out to be lies, and people see that. Originally, the vaccines were supposed to be like 95% effective. That was like the original promise. The original promise was that it would immunize anybody from transmitting the virus. That was the whole thing. Now it's limiting. Now it does something. If you get a booster, maybe you won't spread it. It was supposed to stop the virus. That was what we were promised. So vaccine skepticism exists because vaccine promises were broken. And if they showed that first clip from DeSantis isn't being hypocritical because in May of 2021, he said, get your vaccination. And recently he said, this doesn't seem to be working out. That's because in May of 2021, we were told something and the health experts, the scientific experts, said one thing was happening, and DeSantis said, okay, if that's what you're saying. Other figures on the right said this as well. Ben Shapiro said this. His business partner and God King of the Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring, said this. A lot of people were saying this, saying, yeah, take the vaccines. It'll help prevent hospitalization. It'll help prevent death, in certain ages and whatever. And then as more information came out, they gave different answers because that's what you do when more scientific data comes out about a thing. But you phrase it as leaning into vaccine skepticism? That's insane. Let's see what Asa Hutchinson has to say about this.
So that we can prevent the 300 deaths a day that we're still averaging in America. You have any thoughts?
Okay. Also, 300 deaths a day. We have a lot of deaths a day in America because of illnesses, whatever. 300 deaths a day. Why don't you say what that is coming from? Is that young, healthy people in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 40s? The 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s? Because it's higher. It's very high. People are dying from that. Yes. Are they dying from it? Are they dying with it? Because they still don't separate those two things in the data. They don't say if you're dying from it or dying with it. So thousands of people, tens of thousands of people die every year from pneumonia because that's just the cause of death. But the real cause of death is the fact that you are 85 years old, 90 years old. I'm sorry to say we all don't live forever. I mean, that stinks. Kind of wish that, you could live as long as you wanted to, as healthy as you wanted to, but that's not how it works. So Chuck Todd being incredibly disingenuous here, but all right.
Well, we shouldn't undermine science. We shouldn't undermine the medical community that's very important to our public health. And whenever you look at how I handled the pandemic in Arkansas, we didn't have mandates of government forcing people to take the vaccine, but I did go out into the communities and I had the medical experts there educating them as to how this is beneficial and how this is important. And I had local community doctors addressing that. So I think we are not good as a society. It's not the right direction if we diminish the facts.
All right, that's enough out of you. That's enough out of you. Diminish the facts, not good in the society. Okay. So Asa Hutchinson's taken the trust the science route in this to go after DeSantis. First of all, the fact that he is allowing Chuck Todd, of all people, to control the narrative on this, that is a problem. No Republican should allow that to happen. You need to, when you're talking to these people in the media, you cannot grant them the premise of anything. So they're granting them the premise that Ron DeSantis is undermining science is a joke, because Ron DeSantis is probably the only governor in the country that was actually following science. He was just following actual science and not what the CDC was saying based on nothing. They were making decisions based on data they didn't even have. So Ron DeSantis is actually one of the only people who are following the science. So Asa Hutchinson playing the left's game is not a way for him to get into the Republican primary to be a leader. So what he's actually going to do is, if he jumps into 2024, he's actually going to be helping Trump. Because what he's going to do is he's going to pull away votes from other candidates, but nobody in the Trumpian side who may switch to DeSantis would ever vote for Asa Hutchinson. So if you're going to split the party 10 different ways, then just like in 2016, Trump's going to sneak through in 22, 23, 24% of the vote. And then he'll get to the nomination. And then he'll get to the general. Now, I think that that's a very foolish move. I actually wouldn't mind Trump as the president of the United States. I just don't want him as a candidate for the president of the United States, because I think that he's just way too divisive. It's very hard to have a coherent Republican message when Trump is in the field. Now, the problem is, I don't think Trump is going to go away. There's a very good chance that he runs as an independent if he doesn't win the nomination. So I actually have a real problem with what's going on in 2024. Asa Hutchinson is not the answer. Pat Toomey is not the answer. These guys have got to go away because their time is done. Their time as the stalwart Republican leaders is over. They don't know what the Republican Party needs at this point and what the Republican voter is looking for. What the Republican voter is looking for is to just stop the onrush of horrible leftist policies in a package that is not crazy. That's what we need. So that is a very hard line to draw, because a lot of people are really nuts who say really good things, and a lot of people who are really seem very serious and very, strong and presidential say really bad things. So very few people are actually walking that line. Ron DeSantis does it. I think Lee Zeldin in New York does it. I think that Glenn Youngkin does it a little bit. I think that there's a bunch of Republicans out there that do that. I think that Tim Scott does it pretty well. I think Nikki Haley does it pretty well. They could be a little stronger on the cultural issues. But honestly, the idea that an Asa Hutchinson or a Pat Toomey is going to tell the Republican Party what they need going forward, that's a joke. That's not going to happen. All right, that's going to be it for me. Happy Hanukkah to all the Hanukkah celebrators out there. I am one of them. And I think the next episode is on Christmas. I don't know if there are Sunday shows on Christmas, so it's kind of hard to have a Sunday show reaction episode if there's no Sunday shows on Christmas. So I guess we'll find out later next week. Until then, we're going to have a couple episodes during the week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Hit that subscribe button. We're going to need it. Thank you very much. Have a good night.